Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another 21st Century Renaissance and another open interest newsletter breakdown on GameStop. I'm your host, Dr. Michael LoPiano, and I think we are in store for a bit of a recovery here. We're talking today about some of the factors that I anticipate are influencing what's telling me that I think we are ready to head back on the road a little bit to the upside, that we have indeed bottomed out here, in the way that we expected to bottom out. So we'll be talking about that today as we on our discussion of GameStop today. Before we do, we will be turning our attention to a continuation with our Bible readings, getting some insight into the fundamental thought and perceptual structures, the ways of seeing and perceiving value in the world that I consider to be so fundamental to my ability to, see the things that I see when I'm looking at GameStop, and not only that. So yeah, today we're continuing on with our reading in the book of Genesis, the book of Becoming, and the reading of the generations of Adam here. So understanding what happens right after these first few generations following Adam. And we come now, of course, right? So earlier in the week, we talked about the generations that descend from Adam via the line of Cain and via the line of Seth, and how we have some differences here in these two lines. Cain, of course, Cain's way of life, indeed being something that is fruitful and multiplicative in some ways, but multiplicative of violence, of vengeance, of vendetta, of technology, right? Of let's say the darker aspects of technology and of organization and such, right? With Cain being the father of cities and his descendants being the fathers of weapons of war, various contraptions, and of the practice of polygyny, of taking multiple wives. Specifically, polygyny is what is mentioned in the Bible. And there is a statement here that we saw, of course, yesterday, that the state of the world becomes so bad, right, that this practice of polygyny on the behalf of the lineage of Cain brings the world into such a wicked state, a low state, that it's essentially unlivable, right? And it evokes the wrath of God. Not just the wrath of God, but something like the sadness, the regret. Interestingly, right, the King James version has the repentance of God. God repents unto himself that he has made mankind. Very interesting depiction of God here. But of course, right, this diverges as a result of Noah, right? Noah is meaning something like comfort in Hebrew, or you shall be comforted. So here we have the accounts of Noah, who happens to be someone who is different. So we'll go ahead and take a look here at who this Noah character is and what the Bible has to say about his life, in contradistinction to the generations of Adam by the line of Cain. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, the flesh that is. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, and the breadth of it 50 cubits, the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark. In a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven. And everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant, And thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. So we have 2 essential parts to this second portion here of Genesis 6, this first portion of the story of the life of Noah. We have a restatement of the circumstances tied in, of course, with Noah. And we have just exactly we have a description of what makes Noah different from everyone who is otherwise upon the earth. So Noah, of course, Noah has a way of life that is called perfect, insofar as Noah most closely resembles the original state of man. Noah's way of life does not deviate from this 2-by-2 male and female pair bonding approach, not polygyny, right? Not the agglomeration of sexual partners. This is what the Bible states has gone wrong with the world. And Noah, alone among men, does not live in this fashion. The rest of mankind has been corrupted to the point that this is all that they can concern themselves with. And the product is violence. It comes out, right? God says this. The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, that is, through mankind. And so with this second portion, right, well, we get this sense, right, what Noah lives this particular way of life. And as a result, he has a family, which is set up after him, which also lives according to his way of life, right? So Noah shows promise. Noah is a seed that shows potential that his descendants can live in his fashion, right? It will not be as Cain. It will not spiral out of control as the line of Cain. And there is something of a hope, it seems, that Noah's line may be without perhaps the corruption of Adam, which we're not exactly sure if the line of Seth has been, it doesn't seem to have been affected, right? It's not affected by the sin of Cain. It seems to be affected in some part by the sin of Adam, because, right, Noah's father Lamech, different than Cain's descendant Lamech, but Noah's father Lamech is also affected by the curse of Adam. And Noah's father Lamech sees Noah as potentially some sort of comfort, some sort of reprieve from the curse of Adam, which is to till the ground in such a fashion as to bring about unrepentant suffering, something like that. But interestingly, right, because of this, Noah walked with God, is one thing that it says, right? Noah walked with God. Perfect were his generations, and he walked with them. Noah has a well-established family. Noah has this well-established lineage. And so because of this, because Noah has established his way of life and has established his family properly and assured that his descendants also establish their families properly, right? So Noah has one wife. He is fruitful. He has multiplied himself, right? He has 3 sons, not 1, not 2, but 3. So he shows that he is capable of increase. He knows that he is capable of sacrificing commitment by committing to just one woman. He shows that he is not preoccupied with the agglomeration of an infinity of sexual partners. And he is shown that he is also an effective teacher. Why? Because his sons also live the way that he does. His sons are also not concerned with this. Okay, so he has this set up, and as a result, he is able to walk with God, meaning he is there to receive this message from God. And what essentially is this message from God? A lot of the times, right, we can reflect on this and say, all right, well, there's all this destruction, and God is going to destroy the earth. But really, right, what God is saying here is, yes, I'm going to wipe the earth clean, but I want you actually to save all life. The earth has gotten to a state where its extent is not great. But it's not life itself that's the problem. That's what's key here. Life has, let's say, unfolded. It has generated itself or evolved down an unfavorable pathway. And God says, basically, I have to get rid of this, right? But there's no going back. There's no let's start from scratch. It's all I need to do is reverse the generations of man. Well, how do I do that? Well, there's no creating a second Adam. Instead, God's method is to say, okay, I'm going to send this flood, which is going to wipe everything out. But you, Noah, because you live in the way of the original man and woman, and you have shown that you are capable of generating properly, that you understand this principle, you take all life, you take your family, you live, you are preserved, okay? I will give you this vision of how to survive what is to come. And essentially, right, you will be those who will repopulate the earth. Everything that is named here is everything that is named in the account of creation. Everything, right, fowl, everything that flies, swims, creeping and crawling things, a man and a woman will be there, right? Two of every living thing, all of this. Food of every kind. So there will essentially be, there is a preservation of a sample of all life, Noah, and a sample of all life, which, right, just in case you're missing the point of what went wrong here, you make sure that everything in its pair, right, everything in pairs of male and female is preserved. So you, Noah, you will set a precedent for how life is to be. You have shown that your family will also do this. Make sure that this principle of one male and one female, make sure this is reflected in all of the life that you save and preserve. So this principle, the idea is to have all of life reflect this male-female soul bonding, right? Not male, female, female, not male, female, 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 not right. No, have all of this, all life reflect this way of being in the world. And yeah, right. So this, what does this say, right? This says, okay, if we zoom out, sort of come out of the narrative a bit, it seems to suggest like, okay, you know, if you want to, I don't know, avoid disaster or something like that, a way of avoiding disaster, a good idea, right, of how to plan your life such that you and future generations, your future generations, let's say, will not be subjected to this kind of reversal by disaster or something like that, is to establish this particular orientation of the family. That in small numbers, it may not be noticeable, right? The polygamic instinct, let's say, the possibility that this can be engaged in. You know, this can be engaged in, but over time, this is something that will undo society. This may not, right? This may not save society in the event that it does go wrong. It does not necessarily save all of the generations. But it may be the very thing, at least this is the claim of the Bible, right? Let's say in humanity's darkest hour, where God deemed that all life, nearly all life, be erased, that it is this very commitment on behalf of a single human individual and his family. It's this decision to live in this way that actually vouchsafes life itself to the author of all creation. Very, very interesting claim, right? I mean, make of it what you will, but that is more or less what the claim is of the book of Genesis at this point and the life of Noah. Number one, it can be saved merely by the life of an individual. A single person the decisions of a single person can have the weight within the grand scheme of all things to save all life itself. That's a claim of the book of Genesis. So that's number one. And number two, the most basic or fundamental of decisions to decide to commit to the proper building of a family, that act itself is world redeeming. World redeeming in the sense of all life. That act as a human being redeems mankind itself to the structure of creation, to the matrix of being in the world. The fact that mankind engages in that practice is what enables our permanence here within time and space, and not merely as a long forgotten dream in the past, perhaps as so many other living species are at this point. So it's a very powerful claim. But that is a principle that is asserted in the book of Genesis, and it is that principle which is at the foundation of Christianity, certainly, and Judaism as well. Now, as we'll see in the Bible, mankind continues to try to find a way to make this work alternatively. But certainly the very onset of the Bible, right, and this is maybe, we might think of this perhaps to a certain extent as a product of addition. It says, well, we read through all these books. We have all these history. We have these chronicles. We have all these thousands of years of accounts. We see how everything goes. And the result of all these stories is actually just what's expressed in the story of Noah. Right? As we'll see, right? The next, 20 books of the Bible are about, right, human beings not doing what essentially the very first chapters of the Bible say are a good idea to do. And it doesn't work. And it requires the culmination of the New Testament, right? It requires Christ as a second Noah in a certain sense. So something for us to continue to think about as we continue along with our readings, as we continue along with thinking about some of the fundamental claims of this particular library of texts, this corpus. But let's go ahead now and turn our attention over to GameStop. So yeah, I think a mild OpEx recovery is on the menu heading into today. We will go ahead and dole out some gratitude here. Today's video newsletter, we say thank you for today's video breakdown and newsletter to Dude McStud once again for sponsoring it, as well as to our monthly supporters, Not Medical Advice, Kurt Lusko, Cosmotropic, Dayswag52, Cameron DeLeon, Drew Krantz, and Teo Lapis, aka Faithless Luder. A number of technical signals popped out to me essentially today, right? I mean, earlier this week, we were talking about basically kind of in that upper 30s area, sort of, I had at least pointed to this historical level, this 2371 level as a likely area of reversal should it pop up, given that was our low following the Q2 earnings report pump sell-off. So I was, basically ballparking saying that's definitely a low there. Yesterday, I also talked about the 500 4-hour moving average, which at the time of making the video, I think was around 2381 or 2382. Basically by midday, about 4 hours in, it had risen up to 2385. And very interestingly, something I did not notice until taking a look at some broader charts today, our weekly 2385, right there, 2385, 2386, our 200 weekly simple moving average also at that level. So during the day yesterday, we did see the price go down there. Only once did it go ahead and touch that 2386 level. That was our low of the day. And then we very, very slowly, slightly listed back up, notably before 1:45 p.m. That is the swap clear margin deadline. You'll recall, of course, yesterday we talked about this as potentially being the product of a 1-year total return swap dating back to October 9th, 2024, when we had our previous low within this coming off of quarter two earnings and before we went into our November, December, early January upcycle. So it does look like we moved down there, right? Altimeter also put out some very interesting metrics here, called our attention to the very conspicuously close correspondence between the JPY, that is Japanese yen US dollar index, and GameStop here. They're lining up pretty closely. That continued to be the case, although I will go ahead and point out over on our 4-hour chart, GameStop, as it approached, what is this? This is the 200, this is 4-hour, but this looks more like a daily chart. It's labeled 4-hour, but this is, no, I guess it is a 4-hour. Trader View giving me some different values here. In any case, yeah, I don't know why it's measuring that differently. In any case, very close, right? These two overlays, but I will point out and say that we do see today, we see Japanese yen starting to move back to the upside. Altimeter also pointed out, or I should say via his bottom finder indicator, yeah, yesterday was the tallest signal we've gotten basically since February 2025, February 7th, 2025. That is right before we had another sort of upside, a bullish mid-cycle event. Of course, that was a down cycle. This is technically an up cycle. So it's a little different, but notable to call that out, right, as something maybe corresponding to a mid-cycle event. And then, of course, right, so this is the chart of it here. This is what happened, right? So we got the signal right over here at the bottom on the 7th, and then on the 10th, we did this move, traded down a little bit into the middle of that week, and then that Thursday, the 13th, after hours, immediately after hours, we shot up to $31, $31.66, I think. So very interesting. Altimeter also calling out, right, we had something overnight here, right, of a silver. Well, silver's been pumping quite a bit in any case, right? But to have something of a squeeze after hours yesterday, although it's come down a little bit since then. But in any case, right, we do see silver is on the march up. That really corresponded very well to the beginning here of our uptrend coming off of earnings. What I will point out, and what sort of Altimeter's been pointing out here as well, is we do tend to see GameStop move up when we see both silver and the Japanese yen moving up together. So JPY moves up, that is, it strengthens versus the dollar, or weakens versus the dollar. No, weakens versus the dollar? Strengthens versus the dollar. And silver moves up, meaning strengthens versus the dollar. Then GameStop also tends to move up with it on that account. So that may point to something like just general dollar weakening, but it also may point to something like GameStop being swapped with silver, in which case something of a silver swap basically got cleared or rolled or something of the like yesterday. GameStop had to be suppressed in order to accommodate that. And now, right, and you'll notice, right, actually with this kind of lady gobble pattern here on, right, so this divergence, this top line divergence from the bottom line divergence here. I know this is not exactly what it measures, but it fits very well actually with, say, GameStop's divergence, right? These two indicators especially. This kind of looks like our lady gobble, doesn't it, right? To see silver go up here, to see JPY like here, to see GameStop come down here, right? We get this big open maw, as in, a misalignment between these assets. And I think in large part, right, what Altimeter generally suggests with his indicators is that using these type of assets versus GameStop price is a good way of actually finding when something like a large derivative that contains GameStop is being rolled, and therefore these prices then diverge pretty wildly when they should be much more closely correlated, something of the sort. So yeah, so I would say I think something like a bit of a recovery is likely in play for today. Would I say that moves much beyond 25? No, I wouldn't. I think that's more or less where our upside is kind of capped there. Maybe we go up a little bit beyond that, but I think, right, the thing is our max pain is up at 25.50. A new chain has not been opened. There is no GME chain for 1010 options expiry, just a GME 1 chain, so that hasn't changed. Max Pain is up at 25.50. So by just OI markings, we do have some considerable upside there. Not necessarily saying we're going to get a big, $1 move today or anything of the sort. We might, but not really hardly committing to that, saying we're definitely going to get that. But do I think now we go to 23? No, I don't think that's on the menu. Based on what I've just shown you, I don't think that's the case. I'm still not, majorly optimistic for October OPEX. And if we take a look, right, so Chart Exchange doing some good work combining our two options chains here, where we do have this kind of depression in the midst of our Max Pain strike. So coming out of this, I mean, there's not a lot of contracts here for early November yet. But Max Pain strikes do go up higher into November, and even November OPEX, right? They are higher versus, say, what's going on around October OPEX. So I would anticipate maybe we come out flat. Basically next week maybe we see a little bit of action early and then kind of settle still below 25 going into the end of the week. Plenty of calls will expire out of the money. I'm sure lots of folks will be happy with that. This big unwieldy dual chain for October OPEX will be gone. Right, and then we'll have basically a week and a half before the combo National Cat Day plus FOMC new rate cut. Usually rate cuts do correspond to bullish price action in GameStop. Maybe they front run that a little bit. Maybe we see a little bit of bullishness culminating in October 31st, right? That tends to cap off when we see, it's usually 2 days post, especially for 2024. It was the case that really 2 days post rate cut is when we got big bullish price action as a result. So could see that going into these first couple weeks here of November, heading into the November 15th filing deadline before maybe cooling off for a little bit into quarter three earnings, which is going to be the second Tuesday of December. Should be the 9th of December. So a little bit of up and down, nothing crazy here. Kind of seeing even on maybe that early November, sort of late October, early November move up, kind of seeing us not really go past the 27 area, thinking we see some more trading in 25, 27. And a large part of that has to do with the fact that I think it's why I drew this big kind of blue line here. Let me see if I can bump out to our charts here on TradingView so I can show you this. Yeah, and largely, right, what I think we are looking at is, something of a big wedge, right? Let me see if I can get this stuff out of here so you guys can see better. Something like, right, the setup here, really, really huge wedgeroo here, going back to the sneeze, kind of coming down, connecting here. And connecting with these local highs. And what I think is, there is something of a technical pattern being established. I mean, I don't think we're going to go all the way down. I don't think we're going to go all the way down to $16. That's be lame. Right, something of a really big wedge that's going to culminate over these next couple of months. Right, here's Q3 earnings, but maybe in the lead up or coming out of Q4 earnings, and then into June here, right? So maybe this is where we start to build out, right? We kind of hang out a little bit more down here into the end of the year, and then we start to come out of our shell going into March, something like that. Earnings again. We have another big June run, and then the question is, okay, right? If we're trading in the upper 30s again, upper 40s. Warrants can be exercised. I think more or less that period maybe where the warrants are. Maybe it begins, right? Maybe something begins, kind of post December. It's getting pretty tight here, right? We're getting very tight. Kind of stepping out beyond this. We just got shorted underneath it. I think it's going to be tight. I think we're going to see a lot of 25, 27 here. Kind of going into this November, kind of the upside there. Maybe we come back down to 24, 23 plus, maybe 24-ish before Q3 earnings report, December 9th, and then I don't know, maybe we just we start going up again. And then GameStop's overall pattern, right? This kind of the aftermath of Roaring Kitty's return transforms into, a brand new triangle thingy, right? Just like we have this really, really big triangle thingy here, continuation of it here, right? Maybe then, we break out and then we turn into Tesla circa 2020, 2021, something like that. A little bit of speculation there on my part, but it's fun to do that sometimes, right? It's important to take a bit of a more holistic view, even if it means, it's not super accurate. That's what we important to look a little bit farther down the road. If anything, right? That's what our Bible stories, especially at the beginning of the book of Genesis, tell us to do. Look a little bit farther down the road, okay? See what your actions might have as a consequence for the generations that come after you. Yeah. Strive to be perfect in them. We strive to be perfect. We can't be perfect. But worth the while, worthwhile taking a look nonetheless. So that's gonna wrap it up for today's video and this week's videos. We will have our live stream tonight at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So just before market close, we'll get started a little bit before then. Look forward to seeing you guys there. Taking a look at questions, going over some of the concepts from this week, maybe touching on some of our Bible verses. Gonna be a good time. So look forward to seeing you guys there. As always, thank you very much for watching and listening. Let's go GameStop, and we'll see you guys tonight. Take care.